Since this one was banished, okay, God sent another one. You see this name? So this is very important. Why? Because after Adam and Eve were sent out of paradise, they had Cain and Abel, but Abel get so Cain was vanished. So nobody was there, right? So what did God do? Give one more. So this is the third son. Now, if you read the Bible, you will notice, okay, that there are other sons and daughters of children. You will see that if you read the Bible. But the concentration is on this name, the one that I give to you. That is where the concentration is. Why? Because that is the line which God will use to fulfill His promise. So, you have the lineage because when Adam and Eve sinned, they threw away everything that God was supposed to give us. We were supposed to live near or in the vicinity of God. But they threw that away so much so that God, when He walked the earth, He had to look for them. Before, all God had to do was, go down to paradise and converse with Adam and Eve, just like this. But when they sinned, they throw that away. So, when we were banished from paradise, we started to go through time. So when God created the world, He started time. And at the same time, He was going to cross from eternity to temporal life. That is why, according to tradition, that is one reason why the angels rebelled against God. Why? Because they didn't want to kneel down or bow before the God who is the human. Okay? Of course, remember, the intelligence of the angels are like God. They're almost like God. So they know. And they didn't want to bow down. So some of them rebelled, and Saint Michael had to defend. Now, so he has to establish a line from heaven down to earth. And that is through the human being. Okay? Anybody out there who says, oh God, okay, God could have just come down and become a God on earth. But God didn't choose it that way. So, because He created man, He uses man in His own character. So, you have the line of the name. So, next to Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, came Seth. And Seth has his own family. And then, all the way down, there is one person that walked with God, or God walked with that person. Do you know what is the name of that person in the Bible? Did you go through that name? No? Okay. Let us go through the names. You have Seth, then Enos, then Kenan, and then you have Malal, Jared, Methuselah, Lamech, and you have the name Enoch. The story of Enoch is the only person at that time who disappeared with God without dying. You see, God is so perfect. If we go before Him, we're going to disintegrate. Because we are just matter. We have a soul. And now our soul will be the one that will be lifting us up. So, with that, God uses human beings and establishes the line. Methuselah is one of the children of Adam that lived the longest, around 900 years. Okay? And then, all the way down the line, you have Lamech. Up to Lamech, people were still good. But after Lamech, the sinful people abounded. And so God said, I will clean up my creation. And so He sent who? The one that created the ark. No. Noah was the instrument by which God cleaned the world. So Noah was commissioned to make an ark, and it became an ark of covenant because after the flood, God established again His covenant with mankind. And it was through Noah and his family. Okay? And then, from Noah, again, another line. How many sons did Noah have? 3. One of the 3, God has to choose. Okay? And it was Shem, the line of Shem, that continued the covenant. All the way down to Nahor. And then from Nahor, God chose Abram. If you notice, when there is something that is important, God chooses to change something. Right? So, when God created the earth, He chose Noah. But from Noah, out of his 3 sons, he chose Shem to continue the line. And from Shem, it goes all the way down to Lamech, which is the father of Abraham. Now Abraham, when God chose Abraham, and mind this one, put this, remember, when he chose Abraham, he renewed his covenant. Remember, here he promised to Noah that he will never again gain or destroy the earth by water. By water. And that foreshadows the cleansing of the water, the sacrament of baptism. Okay? So now Abraham was chosen. Because of that, God has to do something. And what he did was change his name. When he established the covenant, his name was changed from Abram to Abraham. Remember that, okay? Abram to Abraham. And that is the covenant. The covenant which he established as his people. So again, at this point, God wants us to be with Him just like Adam and Eve. But this time, there is a covenant that people had to do. Okay? So we have to be obedient to the covenant. Because when He created Adam and Eve, there was really not really, it's supposed to be understood that because He made us, we are His creatures, we are His people. But we forgot. And we turn away from God. Now, to Abraham, He wants us back. So, with this covenant, He changed the name of Abraham to Abraham. And from this time on, whatever descendants that will come through Abraham will be God's people. But again, we as human beings, we have our ups and downs, up and down. So, Abraham was tested also. He was told he will be the father of many nations. But Abraham said, "Really, Lord? How can that be? I don't have even a son." Now at that time, there was something that they do to fix that. So if a guy has a wife and the wife doesn't give birth to a baby, the guy can get the servant and make the baby out of the servant to continue the line. And that is what happened. So, what happened was that when Sarah was told, "You will become a mother," she didn't believe either. because she was 80 years old. Right? So he said that, okay, Abram, he sent the maid. And so Abram had the first child by the maid. Okay? And then, the name of the servant was Hagar. And Hagar bore a son, and his name was called Ishmael. Right? But the promise of God is with Abraham and his wife, Sarah. So, after 1 year, Sarah gave birth. More than 80 years old and she still gave birth. She still gave birth. So, what happened was that now there are two sons. At this time they didn't quarrel. It was the mothers that quarreled. Because Sarah was looking at the maid, and the son was older than her son. And usually they have a custom that who is the older will become the heir. He said to Abraham, hey, no, that cannot be. Send her away. So Abraham prayed to God and said, what will I do? I have two heirs now. And my wife is asking that I dispose of my other son. But God said, no. I will take care of him, I will make a nation out of him too. He's your son. So Abraham decided to send Hagar away with Ishmael. While on the desert, Hagar prayed and asked that God protect him. And so Ishmael became a nation also. Okay? When we get back to the Bible, we can see what are the people that came from Hagar. And so the line was from Abraham and Sarah, and the son was named Isaac. Okay? And it was through Isaac that God continued the line by which He will use to conquer as a human. With Isaac, again there were some things that happened along the line, but he survived and came two sons. Anybody know who are the two sons of Isaac? Esau and Jacob. And you see the numbering? 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Yeah. So, Esau was the older one. He was hairy, while Jacob was younger and fair. So what happened was that the mother was more favorable to the younger one. And Esau goes out to do some things and he go back home. And when he goes back home, he prepares things for his father, being the eldest. But what happened was when he was out, my mother did prepare something just like what Esau would have done, food. And then got Jacob something and put it on his arm, so that when the father, who was already very old at this time, Isaac, and not seeing anymore, will hold his son up, held. So that time the custom was when the father is going to have the next line of his family is going to give a birthright blessing. So what happened was when Esau was out in the field, comes in Jacob with his mother, and then offered the food and that thing on his hand. So the father said, the boys belong to Jacob, but the hand and the hair belongs to Esau. Anyway, so what he did was, okay, since you're here, I'll give you the blessing. That is how Jacob stole the birthright. And because of that, of course, what's going to happen? That Esau will be very, very angry. Right? So what happened? His mother said, Jacob, go to my brother. Go far away. So you will live. So Jacob left to escape. And Esau put him there in the field. Right? So now the line goes to Jacob. On his way to escape, many things happen. And then you will see that God really was going to use Jacob. So Jacob on his way had a dream. What was his dream? He dreamed with the angels going up and down forever, right? That's one dream. The other dream is on his way back to his father. He fought with an angel. That's the first time that a human being fought with a spirit. But of course, the spirit had to assume body. But the story says that Jacob fought with an angel. And he won. But anyway, by that time, his name was changed from Jacob to Israel. And that's when present Israel now got its name. From Jacob, Israel. Why? Because God, when He made a covenant, made at least 7 promises for Abraham. Okay? And when Isaac took over, these 7 promises was given to Isaac. And then when Jacob turned and became Israel, these 7 promises was given to him. One of them is that all the descendants will reach the place which God promised for them to stay. They called it the promised land. God promised a place to Abraham where he is going to stay. But Abraham and Isaac were not able to get to this promised land. What happened was when Jacob turned to lead all the people, which now is called the people of God, and his name was turned into Israel, he couldn't also get to the promised land. What happened? Now come in the story of Joseph. We call him Joseph the dreamer. So Joseph was one of the 12 sons of Israel. And he was sold by his brothers to some merchants that went to Egypt. And so Joseph became a slave in Egypt, and he was imprisoned. What happened was that because he had this knack of interpreting dreams, he could interpret dreams. And when the Pharaoh had a dream, nobody can interpret it until the person in charge of the house of Pharaoh called Potiphar. Remember that there was this Israelite who was called a dreamer. And so he had his own dream, and he asked Joseph to interpret it for him. And Joseph interpreted for him, and it happened. So when Pharaoh had a problem trying to understand his dream, he asked all the wise men of Egypt to interpret the dream, but they couldn't. Until Potiphar remembered Joseph, who was in prison, and took him out and sent him to Pharaoh. Joseph interpreted the dream, which was the dream of 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. Okay? So, because of that, the Pharaoh made Joseph the governor of Egypt. Next to the Pharaoh, there was nobody. The person, Mr. Potiphar, in charge of the household of the Pharaoh, was put under Joseph. So next to the Pharaoh, Joseph. And he oversaw everything until such a time when the famine came throughout the whole world. Everybody had to go to Egypt to get food. And what happened? Israel was old already. And so he said, son, you better go to Egypt or we will die because of famine. Nothing to eat. Okay? So he sent his son. Out of the 12, remember, Joseph was sold to Egypt, right? So how many sons now? He had 12 sons. Joseph was removed, so he had only 11. And the youngest was Reuben. let's see. All right. Okay. So, the 12 sons went to Egypt. And what happened was Joseph was already there. And so the 11 brothers were so afraid. But Joseph did something. To make the story short, Joseph had to tell them, hey, don't worry about it. I was sent before you so I can feed you. So Joseph took in his brother and his father. And so now, what happened was, instead of going to the promised land, Israel went to live in Egypt. No more promised land. But that is not what God planned. So Joseph took care of his father and his brother, and they increased in number. And the people of God got so numerous that the Egyptians were afraid. So, in the land of Goshen, when Israel died, Joseph was still there, right? But when Joseph died, nobody knew who was the leader of Israel. There was no one. So they became slaves of the Egyptians. And because there were so many and numerous, the Egyptians were afraid that they might revolt and took over Egypt. But God has His own plan. So what happened? Because they were already having problems, they were crying out to God, Lord, where are you? You promised us the promised land with milk and honey flowing through it. Where is it now? Why are we suffering here in Egypt? Because of their cry, God heard it, and He has to send somebody. Does anybody know the name of the guy?
Moses.
So you have to know who is going to deliver them out of Egypt.
Moses.
And according to the Israelites, he is one of the greatest prophets, person of Israel. His name was Moses. What is the story of Moses? Do anybody know? No? Moses.
He was an orphan.
Moses.
Yeah, he was an orphan.
Yeah, he was he was found by the daughter, by the Pharaoh's daughter from the swamp. Because the Pharaoh, being afraid of the many or numerous Israelites being born, ordered that anybody under the 2 years old, remember, 2 years old, may. That is a foreshadow of Jesus. When he was 2 years old, Pharaoh tried to kill him, right? See that? So, Moses was found by the daughter of Pharaoh, who was childless. And so she asked somebody to take care of that for her. And the girl, the sister of Moses, was following the baby in the front, reported to the mother that it was taken by the daughter of Pharaoh. And so Moses became an adopted son of Pharaoh. He was raised just like the son of Pharaoh. And he was, because God is with him, he became a general, and again, just like Joseph, he became the second in command. Anything that he does prosper. And so Moses built many cities and made the empire of Egypt strong. But then came the time when the goodness of Moses out of these people, he tried to help them. And he learned that he was not an Egyptian. He learned that he was a Jew. And so he was trying to help all these people. And one time, it so happened that he killed one or two Egyptians who were trying to get the Jews have a hard life. So the same thing that happened to Jacob happened to Moses. He was stripped of everything and he was exiled. And where did he go? Back to the land where Israel came. So there he found peace and wife and son. But then he had a mission to deliver the people out of Egypt. So he had to go back because he was the one that was called first time to the mountain Sinai. But first, he has to deliver these people out of Egypt. To do that, he has to know the name of God. He went to. So here is the first thing. What is the name of God that was given to Moses? Yahweh? That's the translation. But let's put it into the English. The translation of Yahweh is I am who I am. Yahweh, I am who I am. Okay?
Godman?
What's that?
Godman? Godman?
Oh, let me see that. So, being a human and And he was going to be sent as a deliverer. He was afraid that nobody would believe him, right? Let's say, for example, Kimberly, if I ask you, and you go and give the key, right? And you get there, they're going to ask you, who are you? Right? And then you're going to ask, who sent you here? What do you want? So you will answer, oh, brother just sent me here, and we put the key, right? Same thing with Moses. He was called to Mount Sinai, and God told him, go to the land of your father. I'm sending you to deliver my people. Of course, Moses will ask, who are you? And if I go there, what will I tell them? I cannot see you. To God, this is the first time that God tells us what God's name is. They translated Yahweh, but the problem with that is they do not have vowels in that, so it's and they pronounce it Yahweh. But that is so holy for the Israelites. That is a holy name. So no one would say that name. No one will say Yahweh. They have a different translation and different words. So they will use another description. The anointed one, the Lord, or something. But the translation of that name is I am who I am. Let's say, for example, Anton. I ask you, go there, and then you ask me, what will I tell you? Who said it? That I am who am. What is your take on that? Anton, what do you think? If you hear that word, I am who am, how will you understand it? I am we call it Yahweh. The translation is I am who I am. In your own language, in your own words, in your own understanding, how will you interpret this name? I am, what does it mean? I am. Who are you, Anton? How will you answer? I am your name, right? That's because we are humans. I am Jose. I am Joe. But then, it's only after here. So, what is the name that God gave? Who I am. Right? I am who I am. You know what that means? In your own way, how will you interpret that name? what is your name? What is my name? What does it mean? I am, and then the next one, the name is a question. I am, who am I? The first interpretation is God has no name. First one, no name. Okay? Because it's a question. Right? So, he has no name. Voila. Right? The second one is this is double, right? I am. Okay? I am means existing, existence. You are because you exist. I am because I exist. You feel it? You do like this, you feel it, you are existing, right? That is why it's called I am who exists. In other words, He is the beginning
And the end.
You see this? See that? I am, He exists. That is why He is the beginning and He is the end. And this means so He just exists. He is the beginning and He is the end. And that means that He is eternal and He has no time. These are the things that our first parents squandered away. Would you like to stay forever and not die? Yeah, everybody wants to, right? We throw that away. That is why we are all destined to heaven. That's why we have a soul, because we are supposed to be eternal. But because we squander this, now we come under time. And because we come under time, God has to come down from eternity to time. You see how things are in the Bible? And that is why if you read that and follow through that, you're going to see the line of Jesus. Now, so we have the Israelites, right? Where is this? Because of what happened, we are now here. Do you think you will be exempted from dying? Everybody dies, right? Because we are now on a temporal life. They say that now the humans are supposed to be, at least in America, according to the insurance, you're supposed to live 120. Right? 120. 120, that's what the insurance, that's why if you buy an insurance, you look at the lifespan, 120. But if you look at that, because of the situation, you better divide it by that by 2.
60.
A lot of people die between 50, 60, 70, 80. Right? That's because we squander what we have. But we should always remember that we came from there, and that's where we are going. Right? That's why you and I were made in the image and likeness of God. You have a spirit or a soul that will continue after the physical life.
I have a random question. Like for me, first of all, I lost my dad 13 years ago, and I was always younger, and I was like, why can't I see my dad in a soul or a spirit? Because I was such a daddy's girl, and I never understood that part, like their soul, and like, you know? Until now that I'm older, it's because they never die, they're always with us in our hearts, right? But I wish I could see the soul, you know? They say they're with us, but we just don't see them.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I don't know
Yeah.
if it makes sense, it just comes out. Yeah.
Kasi na. Right? Let us say this is a person, right? What will you, when you look at this person, what will tell you that it is a person?
Infection.
Let's say, for example, Kimberly. If Anton looks at you, what will tell him that you are a person who is a female?
Because I see him, he's a man, he sees me, right?
We call that form is a form of a person. Differentiated from a dog or a monkey or what. When you look at the monkey, you say, ah, it's a monkey. You look at the dog, it's a dog. And when I look at you, you are a human being. This male, you are a human. That's what we call form. Okay? The form is what makes you what you are. The form could be physical, two kinds, physical and spiritual. I would rather use spiritual than any other words. Why? Because in you, they are fused together. That's why you are called new man. You are both the spirit and a body. Okay? So, the physical is under time, temporal. But the spiritual is above the temporal.
Which is the life we're living now, right? Because they would say tomorrow is not promised, because we don't know.
So, you know what Jesus said? Do not worry about tomorrow. Worry about today and what you're supposed to do today. Because tomorrow belongs to today, and yesterday belongs to the temporal life. The future belongs to the spirit. Okay? Sometimes some kids, oh, I know what is my future. Yeah. I can plan for the future. Yeah. Do you know what is going to happen tonight? Or later in 1 hour? You cannot be sure. Because that belongs to the spirit. That's why our body, they say there is a mind, there is, what does the mind do? Deliver into the brain. Beyond that, we cannot explain. Because it is fused. There are things that are inside you that can be done only by the Spirit. So, anyway, going through that, now we are in the temporal life, right? And so Moses was sent to take out and deliver. That's what it's called, deliver. Deliver the people of God from Egypt to the promised land. Okay? This is the word. During that time, the promised land in the Bible is called Canaan. So, the people of God, from Abraham, Isaac, to Israel, they were supposed to go to Canaan. And that is somewhere near Israel at the present time. but they were not able to get there. They got only up to Egypt. And so God had to get the services of Moses, train Moses, and then, but Moses was like, hey, wait a minute, what do I do there? So, again, instead of Moses alone, he sent two people. Who's the other guy? His brother Aaron. His brother. His name was Aaron. So, God gave his name to Moses, which is a known name. And then Moses was afraid to do the things that God wants him to do, so he sent a backup, and it was his brother Aaron. So whenever they go, have you seen the Ten Commandments? Whenever Moses go to Pharaoh, and this is really good, this is that, and Pharaoh and his court challenged him, it was Aaron who did what was supposed to do. So Moses had the staff, but it was Aaron who used it. Until after the 10th plague, they were able to take out the Israelites and travel all the way to the land of Canaan. Right? So, while on the way, there are problems and everything. And because of that, the original people that left Egypt couldn't get to the promised land. So what happened was the children that were born on the way, and the younger one were the ones who continued. Even Moses was shown the promised land, but he could not get in. He was the greatest of the Israelites, according to the Israelites, but he could not get into the promised land. Why? Because he also sinned. So only the new ones went into Canaan and settled at the promised land. Now, the descendants were made up of the tribe of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. Jacob called Israel. Okay. How many sons did Israel have? The 12 tribes of Israel, right? So, Jacob or Israel had 12 sons. But the one that entered the promised land were 40 tribes. Why? Because when Israel or Jacob was about to die, he had 12 sons, right? Joseph had 2 sons. And he adopted the 2 sons. So it was added, and now it became 14. The 14 tribes went into the promised land. Along the way, which is very important to know, at Mount Sinai, God gave Moses the 10 commandments or 10 decalogues. Okay? These 10 decalogues are a summary of the way that God wants His people to live now. They really are not, you can consider them commandments, but they are principles by which you live by. When Jesus came, He summarized it into two. To love God and then to love your neighbor. Very simple. 12. The first three are the three goals for God, and then from 4 to 10 are the goals for living each of them. So, you guys know what are the 12 Decalogue, 10 commandments. 10 commandments. You know? Okay. So what happened to Moses? Moses led the people, right, to all these places. And at that time there were no Mirai or Lexus. There were chariots, horses, but mostly on foot. Okay, can you imagine from Egypt all the way down to the peninsula, when we were all the way to Israel? Moses was around 120 when he died. He died at Mount Nebo. It is a mountain that overlooks the land of Canaan. It was there that God brought him up and showed the whole land. But God said, take a look, because you will never enter the promised land. You will die here. Okay, so the deliverer, Moses, was able to bring out the people of God all the way, almost to the promised land, but never in front. Who came after Moses to lead the people? His assistant, Joshua. Joshua was the one that settled the people of God in the land of promise. So Joshua had the 14 tribes with him going into the promised land. Okay? How are we for time? Are we okay? Are we good? How many more? So we have
About
like
15, we started like at 4 or 5.
Okay. So, now, I want you to think of this like this. Let's say this is God, right? He crossed from God crossed from eternity to time. Okay? Through His word, all the land, all the land. And now, the people are settled in the promised land. And God ruled the people directly. That is why, when you look at Moses and they say that Moses talks to God, because God is ruling his people directly. He gives ordinances and all the things that needs to be done as his people. But again, people are people and they follow and then they forget, they follow and they forget, they follow and they forget. So, God has to send representatives after Moses. So Joshua was helped along by God's son. So, when God was ruling, he ruled first through Abraham. Remember Abraham? He spoke directly to his people. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Directly to them. And when he had to use the deliverer, he had to speak with Moses directly. Okay, so he was directly doing it to the people that he chose. But once they were settled in the promised land, God had to use prophets. One of the prophets is Moses, and then Joshua, and all the prophets coming later on. And when they are tired of prophets, they call them judges. Judges because they're really good and implement what God wants to be done. Okay? And after that, when people get tired of this, they ask for king. Okay? And all these people, we call them patriarchs. The important people that God uses are called patriarchs. Why patriarchs? Because they are the ones in charge of the line that God used so that he will become a human being. A chance that the bad angels are waiting for. So, I want you to imagine like this when you look at the Bible. In a way, you should understand your faith, how your faith came to be. Okay? This is how God started that line for him to come down to earth. And so, through these people, who was the first king that he asked for, that God gave to them? He wasn't a good one. So God changed him with David was a very good king.
Is it like David and Goliath? David
Yeah.
and Goliath?
Yeah. Okay? Then after David, the most famous
Solomon, the son of David.
But all these people, they were good, but then had their own flow. David's flow was Bathsheba. Remember this?
Lucifer, yeah.
That girl? Or this lady?
Sleeper, the husband.
And Solomon, I cannot count.
So many.
He was the king of Israel, had at least 900 wives.
Womanizer or?
I don't want to think. I just want to look at the name. Okay? So, we have all these people, and they're called patriarchs because they were ahead. Okay? And through the line, at the appointed time, we call it the you see that? At the fullness of time, God came down to earth. In the Bible, it says Emmanuel. Emmanuel means God is with us. So in the fullness of time, God came down to us and became human. So now, with Emmanuel, there is now God who became man, human. So, after all of this, in the fullness of time, Emmanuel happened. When you see God man, what comes to your mind? Not Hercules. Not Hercules. But the name is
Jesus.
the angel Gabriel came and said, God is coming. To Emmanuel. And his name will be
Jesus.
Jesus. Okay? Now God has a name. Isn't that beautiful?
Finally.
Now God has a name. Okay? There's no more. Yahweh, I am who I am, who I am, who I am. Now you can say,
Jesus.
Jesus. And that is the meaning of
Christmas.
Christmas. So if I ask you a question, what does Christmas mean?
Jesus.
The fulfillment of God's promise, the coming of Emmanuel, the birth of Jesus. Okay? So how are you in this time? You got the picture? Hopefully. You have any questions? So that is how I want you to picture in your mind. When we start talking about the Bible and when we start talking about the faith, and Jesus is now going to take over. At this point in time, it will be the Emmanuel and his name is Jesus. Next class, we will talk about